Today we are going to discuss the important and the very basics in economics and banking. So, in our world, we are having so many countries. In these countries, some are called what? Rich countries and some are called what? Poor countries. Why these some countries are called rich countries and why some countries are called poor countries? So, what is India? Is it a rich country or a poor country? It is a developing nation. So it is from my childhood days, it is still a developing nation. Why we call it as a developing nation? Why we aren't calling it as a rich country? So what we require to become rich? When we'll call a person as a rich person? When he is having more than sufficient money, then we call him as a rich person, right? In a similar way, a country can be called rich whenever it is having more than sufficient currency with it. So who prints our currency actually? The RBI prints our currency. So if at all RBI can print our currency, if at all ours is a poor country or a developing country, RBI can print the currency whatever we require and it can make our country like rich. But why it is not making our country rich by printing more currency? What happens if the RBI prints more currency than actually what we are having now? So to answer all these questions, we'll learn step by step. First of all, to answer this question, we'll start by learning this gross domestic product. What is a gross domestic product? In short form, it is also called GDP. So gross domestic product is the market value of all officially recognized final goods and services produced within a country in a given period of time. In the simple way, I can tell you like this: that is the total number of goods and services produced within a country in a given period of time. In a given period of time means in 1 year, how many number of goods and services are produced in a country. That is called what? That country's gross domestic product. Now, let us take a scenario where the RBI is continuously printing the currency to make that India rich. So what it is doing, it is printing continuously the currency. So the economy will be having more currency than the goods and services what we have produced in the country. So what happens now? So everybody will be having that currency with them. But the goods and services that are available in the country are less when compared to that currency available in the economy. So everybody, whoever is having that currency, they'll try to purchase these goods and services with the currency what they are having. So when everybody tries to purchase it, as the goods and services are less, so there will be more demand for the goods and services, and it automatically increases the prices of goods and services. So whenever the goods and services prices are increased, it is called, the situation is called what? Inflation. Inflation means what? Inflation means rising of the prices. Rising of the prices of goods and services is called what? Inflation. So even though the currency, there is more currency in the economy, it is not eventually distributed among all of the people. So some people may still be living under the below poverty line. For those people, this inflation condition is a very difficult condition. During this inflation, they will suffer a lot. So it is not good for an economy to have this inflation. So we'll take a reverse scenario, like whenever a country is having less currency, the RBI is not at all printing that currency due to that because it is afraid of that inflation. That's why it is not at all printing its currency. But we have produced more goods and services this year. What happens whenever there is less currency circulating in the economy than the goods and services produced in the economy? What happens? Nobody will be having the currency to purchase that goods and services. Whenever nobody will be having that currency to purchase that goods and services, so the people who are producing that goods and services, what happens? They don't want to produce additional goods because already whatever goods and services they have produced, they haven't been sold. They can't be sold. They can be sell those goods and services. So what happens? They'll never show any interest to produce these goods and services. Whenever they'll stop their production, what happens? They don't require any additional employees to do the functions or to do the work to produce that goods and services. So automatically this will lead to what? Unemployment. Whenever the currency that is circulating in the economy is less than the goods and services available in the economy, that may lead to deflation, which may again lead to unemployment, and which may finally result in that recession. So how much currency we should have in the economy? our currency should be almost all equal to the goods and services that we are producing in the economy. So we should not have more currency, or we should not have less currency than the goods and services produced in the economy. And a country is said to be a rich country or poor country not based upon its currency. It is based upon the goods and services that a country can produce within a given period of time. Based upon that, will clarify or will classify the countries as a rich countries or poor countries. Now, to see that the currency that is available in the economy is exactly equal to the goods and services provided in the economy, we are having two tools. One is like fiscal policy, another one is like monetary policy. The fiscal policy is done by that government, and monetary policy is framed by that RBI. So by using these two tools, we'll control the currency circulation in the economy based upon the goods and services produced in the economy, right? Before going or learning these things, better you go through like what is meant by current account deficit and what is meant by capital account deficit. Take it as a homework and do it by yourself. Search something about current account deficit and what is meant by that capital account deficit. Okay, anyhow, coming back to the topic. So we are having two tools to control this currency circulation in the economy. One is like fiscal policy, another one is like monetary policy. Like, what is this fiscal policy? What the government will do with this fiscal policy? Let us see. So whenever there is less currency circulating in the economy than the goods and services provided in the economy, whenever there is less currency circulating, what happens? The demand for the goods and services will be decreased due to that less currency available in the economy. In such cases, what the government will do is it will increase its spending. It will increase its spending. Increase its spending means it will undertake new projects like metro rail or building up of airports or laying some roads. It will increase its spending, or else it will lower the taxes. Okay, it will lower the taxes or it will start new projects. That's what it will do to increase the currency circulations. Whenever it will undertake new projects, what happens? It will give employment to some people and it will distribute some currency as salary to these employees. So whenever there is a low demand, what the government will do? The government will increase its spending or decrease the taxes. Then we'll take a reverse scenario. Whenever there is more currency circulating in the economy than the actual goods and services produced in the economy, what the government will do? The government will automatically increase the taxes and decrease the spending. It will take the reverse step. So in this way, the government uses that fiscal policy to control and regulate the currency circulation in the economy. So now let us see how the RBI will control and regulate the currency circulation in the economy. So in its monetary policy, RBI, what it will do to control the currency circulation in the economy means whenever there is a situation of inflation, whenever inflation is prevailing in the economy, the RBI automatically increase the rates, the bank rate, the reserve rates like CRR, SLR, etc. By increasing these rates, how the RBI controls the currency circulation, we'll see that one in the coming slides step by step. And whenever there is a deflation prevailing in the economy, what the RBI will do is it will decrease the rates like bank rate, and it will also decrease the reserve rates like CRR. So how this is done, we'll see by step in the coming slides. First of all, let us understand what is this bank rate and how RBI uses this bank rate to control the currency circulation in the economy. So what is this bank rate? Bank rate is nothing but it is the rate at which the central bank in the sense the RBI lend funds to that national banks or domestic banks. So it is the interest rate at which the RBI is lending the funds or giving loans to that domestic banks. That rate of interest is called what? Bank rate. So by this, Whenever the RBI increases this interest rates, what happens? It is discouraging the domestic banks to take loans from the RBI. Whenever the banks are not taking loans, means not taking much loans from this RBI, what happens? The funds that are available for that ordinary banks decreases, and they'll be giving that loans at a higher rate to that regular public. They'll be giving that loans at a higher rate. So whenever they are charging higher rate of interest, very less number of people will be showing interest to take that loans. So the circulation of the currency in the economy here, what is happening here? It is decreasing. So whenever the RBI wants to control, whenever the RBI wants to decrease the currency circulation in the economy, what it will do? It will increase the bank rate. So whenever the RBI wants to increase the currency circulation in the economy, what it should do? It should decrease the bank rate. So it will take an action where it will decrease the bank rate. Automatically the funds that will be available for the banks will increase. Automatically the public who are taking loans from the bank will also increase, and currency circulation increase if the bank rate is decreased by that RBI. Next, we are having a reserve ratio called cash reserve ratio. Cash reserve ratio is also called what? CRR. So CRR is nothing but it is the portion of deposits that the bank has to maintain in the form of cash. What does this mean? Suppose if a bank has got a deposit from a customer or from a depositor, like for 100 rupees. So a customer or a client has deposited 100 rupees in the bank. The bank can't use the whole 100 rupees to give as a loan to somebody else. It can't use the whole 100 rupees as a giving loan to somebody else. What it should do is it has to maintain some cash as reserve according to that RBI guidelines or RBI rules. According to that RBI rules, it has to maintain some part of that cash as reserve. Let us assume like 40% is the cash reserve ratio mentioned by that RBI. So if at all a person deposits 100 rupees, 40 rupees should be kept as reserve in the bank, and remaining 60 rupees it can distribute or it can give as a loan to other person. So cash reserve ratio is nothing but it is the portion of the deposits that the bank has to maintain in the form of cash. Whenever RBI wants to reduce the currency circulation in the economy, it will increase this cash reserve ratio from 40% to 50%. Whenever it increases the cash reserve ratio, what happens? The bank has to maintain. If a person deposits 100 rupees, the bank has to keep as reserve 50 rupees. So it can only distribute the remaining 50 rupees as loans to somebody else. So here what is happening? The currency that is available for the circulation in the economy is decreasing. So whenever the RBI wants to decrease the currency circulation, it will increase the cash reserve ratio. So whenever RBI want to increase the cash circulation in the economy, what it can do is it will decrease the cash reserve ratio. Okay, got it? So in the case of bank rate and in the case of cash reserve ratio, whenever the RBI increases these ratios or rates, automatically the currency circulation decreases in the economy. Whenever RBI decreases the bank rate or cash reserve ratio, the currency circulation increases in the economy. Then the third kind of ratio is statutory liquidity ratio. What is this statutory liquidity ratio is? It is the minimum percentage of deposits that the bank has to maintain in the form of gold, cash or other approved securities. Here, before understanding this definition, we have to understand what is meant by liquidity. So liquidity of an asset can be defined as how easily this asset can be exchanged with another asset. So how easily we can exchange one asset with the other asset, that is the measure of liquidity of a particular asset. For example, if you take cash, cash can be converted into any other asset within a very short period of time. So cash is called the most liquid asset. The most liquid asset is what? Cash. If you take gold, when compared to cash, gold, to convert that gold into any other asset, it will take some time. So you have to convert that gold into cash, then again you have to use that cash to convert that one into some other asset. So when compared to cash, gold is less liquid. If you take land, so if you want to exchange that land with any other asset, or you want to convert that land into some other asset, what you have to do? You have to sell that land, convert it into cash, and then by using that cash, you have to purchase that other asset. So in this transaction, it will nearly take 1 month to go through that registration process of that land and all those things. So land is considered the least liquid asset when compared to that gold and cash. So liquidity is the measure of an asset, like how easily it can be exchanged with another asset. That is called what? Liquidity. Now here coming to that statutory liquidity ratio. So what I have told, the minimum percentage of deposits that the bank has to maintain in the form of gold, cash or other approved securities. Simply we can say the minimum percentage of deposits that the bank has to maintain in the form of liquid assets. This gold, cash and other approved securities can be called as liquid assets. Approved securities means what? These are nothing but the shares in the stock market, so that are approved by a regulatory authority, by the RBI. So the RBI should approve, like you can keep that in the form of approved securities means by purchasing those shares, so in the form of those liquid assets. So in the previous example, what we have taken, a depositor came to that bank and deposited 100 rupees, where the bank cannot use all those 100 rupees to distribute as loan. It can only use a part of that amount. We have assumed that 40% will be the cash reserve ratio. Let us assume that statutory liquidity ratio is 10%. So 40% is cash reserve ratio, statutory liquidity ratio is 10%. So first 40% should be maintained in the form of cash. The remaining 10%, whatever statutory liquidity ratio is there, it can maintain the 10% in the form of cash, or else in the form of gold, or else in the form of approved securities. So that 10% should be maintained as a reserve by the bank in the form of gold, or in the form of cash, or in the form of approved securities. Or we can simply say that 10% can be maintained in the form of some liquid asset. So that is called what? Statutory liquidity ratio. So according to our discussion, so 40% is what? Cash reserve ratio, and what is SLR? Statutory liquidity ratio is 10%. So what is the remaining amount that is left with the bank to distribute as loan? That is 50%. So whenever this RBI want to control that currency circulation, it will increase this statutory liquidity ratio along with that cash reserve ratio and bank rate. Whenever it wants to increase the currency circulation in the economy, it will decrease the bank rate, cash reserve ratio and statutory liquidity ratio. There is another rate called repo rate and reverse repo rates, which is used by that RBI to control the currency circulation in the economy. First of all, we'll learn about that repo rate. So this repo rate is also called as repurchase agreement. Why this repo rate is also called as repurchase agreement? So first of all, what is meant by this repurchase agreement or repo is, it is a contract in which the seller of securities agrees to buy them back at a specified time and price. To understand this definition, I'll take an example of Muthoot Finance or Manappuram Gold. So everybody knows that Muthoot Finance or Manappuram Gold, these are gold financing company. Means they'll take like gold from you as security and they'll provide some finance for you, right, for the gold whatever you have deposited to them. So whenever you are depositing gold here in these companies, so what you will be telling them, what the agreement you are entering into that with that company is like, see, today I am giving my gold as security for you. I'll be taking back this gold after a certain period, like 1 month or 2 months or 1 year. So during that period I'll pay that interest rate for you, and at the maturity period I'll pay the full amount and I'll take back my gold. Here what you are doing, actually you are giving your gold to that person and taking some money. It can be considered as a selling, right? So afterwards what you are doing, you are paying the principal amount whatever you are taking from that person. Along with that principal amount you are paying some interest. That means you are paying more money, means you are giving more money than what you have taken from that person and taking back that asset. So this is called what? It is a kind of a repurchase agreement. In the similar way, in this repurchase agreement or repo rate, what the banks will do is they'll deposit these treasury bills as securities with that RBI and take some loans from that RBI. Okay, they'll deposit what? These treasury bills or some securities with the RBI and take some loans from the RBI. So based upon some interest rate. That interest rate is called what? Repo rate. So whenever the RBI wants to increase the currency circulation, what the RBI will do? The RBI will decrease this repo rates. Whenever it wants to increase the currency circulation, it will decrease the repo rates. So the banks shows interest to take repo rate, I mean to take loans using this repo rate by depositing their treasury bills. Whenever the RBI wants to decrease the currency circulation, what it will do? It will decrease, it will increase this repo rate or repurchase agreement. In a similar way, let us understand a similar concept called what? Reverse repo or reverse repurchase agreement. Here, you yourself consider as Manappuram Gold or Muthoot Finance. The reverse transaction happens here. So you yourself consider like Manappuram Gold or Muthoot Finance. What you will be doing? You will be taking deposit of that gold, means you will be buying it at a lesser price and will be selling back at a higher price, right? So here the reverse repo can be defined as a purchase of securities with an agreement to resell them at a higher price at a specific future date. So here what you will be doing, you will be purchasing these securities from that RBI at a lesser price and you will be reselling them at a higher price to this RBI in the future. That is called what? Reverse repo rate or reverse repurchase agreement. So whenever the RBI increases the reverse repo rate, what happens? You will be getting more return if you purchase the treasury bills from that RBI. So more number of banks will show interest to purchase this treasury bills whenever the RBI increases this reverse repo rates. So whenever these banks purchases that securities or treasury bills from the banks, what happens? All the currency that is available with these banks will be transferred to that RBI and these banks will be having that treasury bills. So to decrease the currency that is held by with these banks, what the RBI will do? Either it will increase the repurchase agreement or it will increase the reverse repo rate. In both cases, what is happening? The currency that is available with the banks is decreasing. So whenever the RBI wants to increase the currency circulation, here I am saying like increase the currency circulation in the economy, what it will do? It will decrease the reverse repo rate. So that no bank will show interest to take those treasury bills because the RBI has decreased that reverse repo rate, right? Then, so whenever the RBI increases or decreases these bank rates or reserve rates or repo rates, it will express the increase or decrease in the form of basis point. So what is this basis point means? A unit used to denote the change in financial instrument. So 1% change is considered as 100 basis points. That means the RBI bank rate, let us assume it is 8% per annum. So now the RBI has increased the interest rate to 9%. The bank rate has been increased to 9%. So 8% to 9%. How much increase? 1% change. So it will never tell like it has increased like 1%. It will tell like it is going to increase 100 basis points. So how many basis points? 100 basis points. Always the RBI expresses the increase or decrease in the bank rates or reserve rates in the form of basis points. So 1 basis point increase will be equal to how much? 0.01% of change will be there. So RBI maximum increases till now what I have observed is like 25 basis points. 25 basis points means how much percent? 0.25%, like 1 by 4th of 1%. So always it is in the form of basis points. So let us learn some laws, that is law of demand and supply. The first one is law of demand and supply. What is this law? Everybody knows this law. Whenever the demand increases, the supply decreases, and whenever the supply increases, the demand decreases. So whenever the demand increases, what happens? The supply decreases, which will show impact on the price. The price increases. Whenever the supply increases, what happens? The demand decreases and the price will also decrease. This is called what? Law of demand and supply. Let us learn another law called law of diminishing marginal utility. What is meant by diminishing here? Diminishing means decreasing. Diminishing means decreasing. Then what is meant by that utility here? Utility is the satisfaction what the customer is getting by consuming a product. It is the satisfaction what the customer is getting by consuming a product, that is called what? Utility. Okay. So here law of diminishing utility means the satisfaction level decreasing. Okay, the satisfaction level for the customer is decreasing. Why the satisfaction level for the customer is decreasing? Here, for example, if you are fond of a product, for example, if you are fond of some mangoes, okay, if I give you one mango, you will eat it eagerly. The satisfaction level whatever you are going to get by consuming that mango, what happens, it will be very high, right? So in the similar way, if I give you another mango, what happens to your satisfaction level? Your satisfaction level by consuming the second mango when compared to that first mango will decrease a little bit. In the similar way, if I give you third mango, what happens? Your utility level or your satisfaction, that is what you are going to get by consuming the third mango, will be less than the satisfaction level what you are going to get by consuming that second mango. Here what is happening to your satisfaction levels? Here your satisfaction levels are decreasing whenever I am completely continuously giving you more mangoes. So what is happening here? The utility levels are decreasing. So here this law explains, like, the more you consume, the more will be the decline in utility levels. That is this law. So this law fails in some cases. For example, if I give you 10 rupees, you will be very happy. And if I give you 100 rupees, you will be very, very happy. And if I give you like 1000 rupees, you will be very, very, very happy. So here what is happening? So the more I am giving it to you, the more you are becoming happy, which is against this law of diminishing marginal utility. In the same scenario, if you are consuming some drugs or alcoholic products, in that case also, the more you consume, the more happier you will become. So in these cases, this law of diminishing marginal utility fails. So if at all in the interview they ask you, like, tell me about law of diminishing marginal utility, they'll definitely ask the next question will be like, what, in which cases this law fails. So you should tell these two examples in that case. Let us learn now about elasticity. What is meant by this elasticity? So the degree to which a demand or supply curve react to a change in price. So what does this mean? So what is the degree to which there is a change in demand or supply due to a small change in the price of a particular product? For example, if you take like coffee, let us assume the coffee prices have been increased. What happens? So nobody will start consuming. Everybody, what they'll do? They'll start consuming the substitute product like tea. So whenever coffee prices are increased, everybody will shift their taste, or they shift their consumption to that tea. So what is happening here? Whenever there is an increase in the coffee prices, the demand for the coffee, what happens? Decrease. So what is happening here? So the demand for the coffee is decreasing due to that increase in price. So there is an effect on that demand. So in the similar way, whenever any substitute product is available for a product, and if the prices of that product are increased, there will be a huge change in that demand or supply of that particular product. That is the measure of elasticity for that particular product. So if at all there is a huge change in the demand or supply due to a small change in price, then it is called what? Elasticity. So the product is having what? Highly elastic. So the product is called what? Highly elastic product. In the similar way, whenever a product is not having any substitute product, then we call that the product is having low elasticity. For example, if you take land, so what is the substitute product for land? There is no substitute product for land. In that case, so there, even though the price is increased or decreased, the demand, there won't be any change in the demand or supply in the case of land. Such kind of products are called what? Perfectly inelastic products. Whenever there won't be any change in the demand or supply due to a small change in price, then we call that products are having low elasticity. Then let us learn about three market situations. One is called what? Monopoly. Another one, it is called what? Oligopoly. Then finally the perfect competition. What is this monopoly? It is a market structure where there is a single buyer or where there is a single seller. So single buyer or seller means what here? So if at all there is a single producer, what happens? Everybody has to purchase that product from a single producer, so he can decide the price at which he want to sell that product. So what is the example for this monopoly means? Until recently, when you take that autos, they were only manufactured by that Bajaj. So no other autos were there which were manufactured by some other company. So if you want to purchase an auto, you have to purchase it from that Bajaj company only. Recently, Mahindra company also launched that autos. So Bajaj was maintaining that monopoly status in the past in this auto segment. Then what is this oligopoly? So in this oligopoly, like a monopoly, so here in the monopoly there will be one person who will be controlling the complete market, whereas in the oligopoly there will be a group of persons, or else a people, I mean 2 or 3 people form a group, and they will be controlling the market. They will be controlling the price of the products what they are producing. They'll never allow another person to start that business or to produce that product, and they'll be controlling the prices in the market. Here the price will be in the hands of a few people, I mean a group of people, whereas in the case of monopoly it will be in the hands of a single person or a single company. Then the final case is like perfect competition. What is this perfect competition? Here anybody can produce the products or anybody can sell the products. So what happens here? Here nobody can decide the price. The price is completely decided by the demand and supply in the market. The price is completely decided by the demand and supply in the market. Such a market structure is called what, or such a market situation is called what? Perfect competition.